Welcome everyone to Aging in Action, and we're very happy to have as our guest today Jenny Fortier with Northern Wildflowers. Hi Jenny.
Hi.
Hi, Jenny.
And I've been following you on Facebook, but we've never met because right now, for the last few years, I've been seriously into gardening and anything to do with flowers. So just the name alone caught my attention. So tell us a little bit about you and your business.
Yeah, so Northern Wildflowers is the business that I own here in Sudbury. I started the business in 2012, so we're going on 10 years very soon. And
Wow.
I
yeah,
had
it's
no
pretty wild.
idea. I've been
Well, and
missing
you
out all these years.
Yeah, I mean, you probably wouldn't have because the first maybe, 5 or 6 years, we were really operating it as a hobby business. So it was very like, we were doing, a few events a year and that was it. But it's taken that long to grow our farm. So it's a process. But yeah, we've been operating for almost 10 years. We grow and sell native wildflower seed that's grown on our farm, that's wild collected, and that's sourced from other reputable growers and wild collectors.
Well, and I can remember, and I don't know, maybe you were the one who commented, and this is going back a couple of years, because I don't know, there was something you could go and you could get a little packet of wildflowers, and I forget which company it was, and somebody said to me in the post, oh, don't go just throw those because they weren't native wildflowers, right?
Oh,
So it's very important that we just don't, because you can get all
Listen.
kinds of seeds online, right? But there's things that we shouldn't have here in our Northern Ontario, right? So, and I never even thought I was going to help the bees, I think, or something. And I don't know
yeah.
who made the comment, but now I'm very cognizant of that. I look to see what are they talking about in terms of wildflowers, right?
Yeah, so you know quite a bit about that space. So yeah, that's one of the reasons that I decided to start the business is there was really a need for products that were good for northern gardeners. So one of the issues that you would have encountered is there's all kinds of products on the market that are wildflower mixes, and a lot of them are reasonably priced and widely available, but we're really in Northern Ontario and even in Canada, I would say we're not the target market for these larger businesses who make the mix, right? We don't make up the bulk of their clientele buying from them. So a lot of these mixes you get, it's things that are native to larger retail markets. Like a lot of them are native to California, which is so different from what's native here or South Central United States. So a lot of gardeners will plant these mixes. They'll get some flowers come up the first year. They'll feel really good about it. They'll be really happy. And then everything will die off over the winter because it's just not hardy to our conditions. So we really set out to make sure that we were putting those products out there that for the most part weren't really in the market commercially, so that gardeners could grow things that would survive, where they would be successful, year after year.
Is it also too that you could introduce an invasive plant that might not be the best thing for us here in Canada? Is that
Yeah.
part of it?
Well, that's always a possibility. Oftentimes, seed mixes usually won't include anything invasive and terrible. Most of the invasives we get that come from garden varieties are things that unfortunately get introduced to garden centers, and no one realizes that they have the potential to become invasive. And we kind of learn after the fact. Like purple loosestrife is a great example where it's beautiful and it was widely available in garden centers for a long time, and no one realized what it could do when it got out. But by the time that was observed, it was really too late. Like it had established so well in so many places. So there's a lot of garden center escapees, unfortunately, but that sector is becoming a lot more aware of that. But usually seed mixes, you're usually going to be okay, but that's always especially if you're buying a mix with some products that are like new and niche and exotic looking, there's always that potential. Yeah.
Mm.
So Jenny, if you're maybe a new homeowner, maybe you're doing some, gardening in your own area and you wanted to kind of, okay, I want to look to see what's going to look really pretty, what's going to really suit our soil, our ground. Can they reach out to you like as a, and you would consult also where they could say, hey, can you come out, tell me what I should be purchasing, what you provide, or do you provide like a wide range and you're like, hey, all of this is going to work beautifully in your backyard? How does it work?
Yeah, great question. So we've set up our website to sort of be that resource where you can, for smaller residential projects, you can search our retail selection and you can look up, if you're in zone 3, you can look up zone 3 and see all of the stuff that's hardy to your zone. Or if you're in Manitoba and you want to know what's native, you can look that up. Or if you have full sun, you can look that up. So we've set up our website to kind of be that resource. We don't do residential work. We're just not a landscaping, that's just not our thing. But we definitely can recommend some landscapers who deal a bit more with natives because it's a field that not everyone really knows about or understands. But our website is a really good resource for figuring out, how to do it and what is appropriate for your yard.
So speaking of your website, Jenny, I was on it the other day, actually, and I purchased some seeds. So this is for gardening, right? So I bought like Swiss chard and cucumbers and dill. So those items are available on your website as well, right?
Yeah, so we grow the wildflower seed. That's our product that we grow, but we're also really becoming a seed house as well. So we're carrying some seed from other providers right now. So we've got some stuff from Seed Savers Exchange. We've got some stuff from Three Forks Farms, and we're also launching our own vegetable seed line in the next few weeks too. So so you can find lots of different stuff on our website. Seasonally, we might have bulbs on there too. We've got, some worm castings. So we'll have different special products like that, but we do have a wide variety of seeds now. Yeah.
Well, that's good to know. Yeah, because we love to support local, right? And you always think you've got to go to the well-known companies out there that we could probably name, but we're not going to because they've been around a long time. But it's so nice to know that there's somebody local that you can reach out to. Like in terms of the zoning for Sudbury, it has, I didn't realize that, for instance, where I am in the hospital area is a different zone than in the valley. I thought we were all the same zone. It could be microcosms of little individual zoning.
Well, yeah. So in the Sudbury area, we're mostly zone 4B, but there is this urban effect, it's called, where, if you're in the center of a city, really because of all of the pavement and dark surfaces, you can actually be a hardiness zone warmer because of that warming effect of, the things that are in cities. So we're in zone 4B, but a lot of folks who, live, in more kind of urban neighborhoods can grow things that are zone 5 and sometimes zone 6. So it's a really, there's like some variety there. It's not a clear cut delineation. No.
Well, that's what's sort of interesting about it, because I remember visiting relatives out in BC, and I think it was Surrey, and they had palm trees. But that's again because it was this small little sort of protected zone that could do that sort of thing, right? But no, I think that's great. And I heard you mention worm castings. I hadn't even thought, so I'm really getting into all this stuff. I'm going to get some worm castings too.
I don't even know what that is.
Well, it is what you might think it is. It's worms pooping, right?
Yeah, so it's like the compost that worms make when they, so the nice thing with worm casting, so we work with a local business called Jocelyn Soil Booster, and they sell bags of worm castings. And the nice thing with that as a compost is it doesn't smell at all. So, you can put it in your indoor plants and it's not stinky. But it also, worm castings are a little unique in the sense that they also have lots of minerals in them. So you've got nutrient and all these trace minerals that kind of give your plants a boost. So we use that product in our indoor plants. We use it, in our field beds. Like we use it wherever because it just really adds these trace things that maybe just aren't in your soil.
Do you find that, like, I kind of started back into gardening partly because during COVID, and we did this beautiful shed in the backyard. Did you see that that was sort of an effect that happened with COVID, that people were more interested in gardening again? And I noticed everybody was growing vegetables, which I'm terrible at, but I want to grow flowers. But
Mhm.
did you see that effect? Is that why there's
Oh,
more recognition?
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been actually our sector, like the agriculture sector and the hobby gardening sector has called that the COVID gardeners. We've actually named that phenomena that we've seen in the last 2 years, because it's been this hobby that's accessible to a lot of folks. Like if you have a yard or access to a community garden, you can do it. It's safe, it's low cost. And so there's been this huge surge of new gardeners. And it's something that's, different in the gardening industry, because generally our industry is characterized by adults like 50 plus, who have time for hobbies and, who like to do things that are, beautifying their space and relaxing. And there's this surge of young gardeners, like kids and, young adults. So that's really different and kind of great. But yeah, there's been a huge, huge surge in interest.
How did you ever get started? As a child, did you have an interest in gardening too? Is that what sort of led to all of this, or?
Yeah, I always liked doing things outdoors. I always enjoyed, like anything in the yard. And I remember the first time we had a garden, I was like 12 or something. And I really enjoyed it, but I more started because I was interested in the native plants and the more ecological side of things, more interested in supporting pollinators and growing things that butterflies need, to be around and that sort of thing. And so that's more where my interest started. And then I realized, that to have a business in that area, I would have to learn how to grow crops for seed and clean seed. Well, I actually don't do it. My partner does, but those were all things we had to learn that we never did before. We didn't, work somewhere where we learned those things. So we kind of had to learn from ground zero, but the root of it was really about supporting wildlife and creating spaces where, we can still have like bees and butterflies, in a city.
Well, and you mentioned bees, and I'm sorry to take over the conversation.
No, that's okay. It's all good.
Well, my brain is
Gardener Gwen.
Well, it's a whole other side of me. Yeah. But
I'll just sit and listen, Gwen. Go ahead.
We're learning.
We're learning.
Because the bees, I mean, it's a huge thing right now, and a lot of colonies were devastated this year. And is it the mite or something, or is it the winter? What do you know what's going on? Because it's so important to try to support our bees, or we're going to be starving soon, right? There's so much involved with bees.
Yeah, I mean, that's such a complicated issue. So yeah, there's in the last 15, 20 years, there's been just major changes in how we're seeing honeybees and native bees survive. And that's really affecting, food production, food prices, but also, the variety of wild creatures that we see around us. We have a lot of native bees that are on the species at risk list that a lot of people don't know about. And so, yeah, it's really important to have healthy areas where they can forage, where they're not being subjected to, chemicals that could be harmful. But also bees forage for one species when they forage. So in the wild, it would be easy for a bee to find a stand of black-eyed Susans. But often, when we're removing that diversity, they don't have that. But also, maybe we've got like a plant here, a plant there, and that's not how bees forage. They like big stands of things because they're going to go out and just find black-eyed Susans and then return to the hive. So gardeners are really changing the way that they look at gardening to make sure that there's areas that are devoted to supporting pollinators in the spring. What are your nectar sources in the spring? Do you have some in the summer? Do you have some in the fall? Those are things that gardeners are thinking about it that they never really thought about, in the past. It was just like, what's pretty, what's easy, what fits in my neighborhood kind of thing.
well, and I absolutely hate pure manicured lawns. Like, there was a time that I thought that was nice, but I really think that as a city, we need to rethink a lot of things because number one, there's so much water going into making that lawn, that green, perfect space. And it drives me crazy when I see waterfront properties like that. Sorry if somebody here has that, but because it should be, we're not doing ourselves a favor by making that so pristine. In order to get it like that, you're adding so many horrible things to your soil, and I want to tear up my whole front lawn. I don't want it. It's just a waste of time and energy. I would love to have just something natural or something that bees are going to want you know, to come back to. So yeah, it's pretty there's a lot more that I never thought about. You know, you grow up, you just see, oh, there's some flowers, whatever, but you never appreciate the impact that those flowers have on the whole ecosystem, the whole environment. Right?
Yeah, certainly. And, you know, lawns are, you know, they can have a purpose if it's a functional part of your yard, you know, for sure. You know, lawns have a place, but somehow as a society, we've developed this mindset that we don't want anything with a flower in our lawn even. So there's no nectar in our, like anything that has a flower that comes up in our lawn, we're like, that's a weed, that looks really bad. But those are the only things that are really feeding anything, you know, there isn't, other than the odd, you know, bunny, you know, there's not a lot that feeds on our lawn. So, you know, I think that people are becoming more open to it, but I think as a society, we have to be okay with it, the look of it, you know, because that's a big part of why I think a lot of people are still maintaining the lawn because they feel like they have to, you know, they feel like that's what's expected of them. But at the end of the day, in terms of climate change, even and carbon capture, a turf lawn captures hardly any carbon. And we're always talking about tree planting to help with climate change and carbon capture. But perennial plants with deep roots like natives actually capture a ton of carbon. And that's not something people often think of, but a lot of native grasses and long-lived wildflower species have these huge underground networks of roots that capture a ton of carbon. So even just, you know, you might not have a yard where you can plant a ton of trees, or you might not want to, but a few perennials can actually, you know, really help with climate change if, you know, we're all doing it, I guess.
I think that leads a little too into, I think there was a big uptake last year about dandelions, leaving them on your lawn. Don't, you know, there were so many people that used to go around with those little gadgets and remove them, or products, you know, chemicals. And I noticed a big change in that last year where everybody that I knew was kind of leaving their dandelions now, right? Letting them do their thing. And eventually they're gone. And I find that that's a big part. Is there any, from your experience right now and from a consumer side of it, are you finding that there's a specific wildflower or something that most people are like kind of drawn to right now, and that it's like beautiful and everybody's like they want it? Is there anything you're seeing market wise?
Yeah, there's a few that are a bit more popular. So people are really interested in milkweeds right now because those are the host plants of the monarch butterfly. And you know, there's been so much education lately on like what's happening with monarchs and what we need to do to support them and provide them with food. So people are really aware of milkweed and why it's important. And we had, you know, last year was a really bizarre year for us because we had in the Sudbury area so many monarch butterflies and caterpillars that they didn't have anywhere to lay their eggs. Like they were laying like 10 eggs on one plant and they were running out of food. And they won't choose to do that if they have enough milkweed. So that tells us there just wasn't enough milkweed in our area to support them. So last year was kind of a good year for monarchs here because they arrived early because it was a mild spring, but then they got here and there wasn't enough food for them. So those are things that people are aware of and they really look for when they're shopping. Overall, people like really showy flowers. They like, you know, tall, full sun, drought tolerant flowers because they're, you know, quite easy to take care of. We sell a lot of something called anise hyssop, which is, tall, drought tolerant. It's purple, but it's also edible. So it's an anise, so it tastes and smells like licorice.
Oh,
And bees go crazy, crazy over it. We have a beekeeper down the road from us, and their honeybees are just all over this shrub, like from the moment it flowers until October. So that one's been really popular. But really, yeah, people like, the things that are also pretty. So we do sell a lot of woodland stuff that's, smaller flowers. That definitely has its place in the right, environment. But mostly it's like the big flowers for full sun that people like.
well, in this year too, because of Ukraine, sunflowers have significance now too, and I intend to plant some this year. I hadn't for a long time, and I thought, it's just a significant thing right now going on in the world, and people are starting to relate it to Ukraine. So that'll be one of my things this year.
Yeah, we have some native perennial sunflowers that a lot of people don't know about, that we have native sunflowers.
I'm writing this down.
Yeah. That are going to come back every year, which is really a nice
wow.
bonus.
Yeah.
Because whenever we, we used to do a bit of landscaping, and we had some clients who wanted sunflowers, and we had such a problem with the squirrels eating all the sunflower seeds before the sunflowers could grow.
Yeah.
I don't know if everyone has that issue, but we were like,
Yep.
sunflowers are terrible. This is not working. Yeah. So our native sunflowers, have smaller seeds that don't seem to be as like irresistible by critters, and they'll come back every year. So we have a nice one called an oxeye sunflower. We have a Maximilian sunflower, and they're do I have a pack here? No. Oh, I do here. Yeah, I don't know if you'll be able to see this clearly with my blurring, but here's the Maximilian. So it's really pretty, and it produces a ton of flowers.
Yeah.
And it comes back every year, which is really nice. And because it's a sunflower, it creates a seed head that birds like to eat over the winter and that sort of thing. So,
that's good to know. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just thinking, I'm taking notes, and I'm like, I've already got like the space figured out in the backyard. I'm like, I'm going to the website. It's going to be expensive eating.
I haven't got a big enough yard, I've got all new flower beds in the last couple of years, and I did do some milkweed last year, and I'm going to do more of that this year. But I thought, I'm going to do the sunflowers, but I think I want to open up my back fence and just go up this ugly hill behind me too, and do some different things there. And that's why it piques my interest, this whole aspect of the native wildflower, something that you can have that'll come back every year and just make an ugly space look like. I really wish.
Okay, Gwen, I'm going to have to cut you
sorry.
off quickly. Her passion, I can feel it. We're coming down to the last minute before we have to end today's show. Jenny, it's been wonderful to learn so much, and I'm sure Gwen's taken so much notes. She will share them across the board, and all your information. Is there any last words of wisdom, or anything that you want to share with any of our viewers, listeners, before we should come to an end?
Yeah. Oh, geez. So first, Gwen, don't worry. I know gardeners are very passionate, so it's okay. I guess the last thing is just, that we're here. We've got our website. You can call us, you can email us. We'll be at the locally in Sudbury. We'll be at the Sudbury Farmers Market for their garden festival day in May. So we'll be there. That's a really great chance to just like pick, our brains if you really want to chat about gardening. But yeah, just thanks for having me. It's great to have a chance to chat and talk to some, fellow gardeners for sure.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time with us today. We've really appreciated all the information. We're definitely going to share everything that we can. I think it's wonderful to promote small community and promote businesses here locally. And you know what? Greenify our community, make it the best that we can. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today on Aging in Action. And we look forward to seeing everyone again. Thank you.
Thank you.